What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Yanks of the Cop. We are here, unfortunately, for the 2-0 loss to Atalanta, Game 4 of the Champions League. I'm joined by my main man, Wahomie. Andrew is off today since it's Thanksgiving in the States, but we do have a very special guest. She is a writer for LFC Offside. We have Mari Lewis. Mari, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
No, we definitely appreciate it. Big fan of your work, and I think we should have a pretty decent conversation today. But yeah, unfortunately, everything that we talked about in the last episode of Yanks of the Cop, all the negative stuff we talked about happened. Atalanta came out firing. We started very slow. You could tell we were pretty sloppy with having 6 non-starters in the game. But Mari, why don't you just kick us off? What were your thoughts when you saw the team sheet, number 1, starting 11, and just the overall performance of the lads?
I think I'm going to surprise you here because I thought we would and thought we should have gone a bit weaker. I was very surprised to see Mane on the team sheet. I think that means he doesn't start at the weekend, which worries me a little bit. I think he looked tired. I have a lot of different things. I do think Klopp would have done something different if he had seen Atalanta's team sheet before he chose his team, if that makes sense. I kind of think Salah needed to get minutes in his legs. He hasn't trained for a bit, so him starting made a lot of sense. I don't think he would have started Origi if he had seen their team sheet, because I think he expected them to be a bit out and out attacking to start. That's kind of not what they're known for, but they are known for scoring a lot of goals. So I think he thought we would have a bit more space to operate, and we didn't. They started quite defensively, quite frankly. And Origi's not very good in tight, short 1-2 situations. So I personally would have put Minamino in for Origi. I know Klopp probably disagrees with me there, since Minamino hasn't really seen many minutes at all. But yeah, so I'm definitely on the less popular side of things, and I'm perfectly fine with the team sheet. Would have gone weaker.
Okay, well, I know that we're gonna have a difference of opinion here, so homie, I'm gonna let you just dive right in there, because I already know what you're gonna say.
So I'm the opposite, in the sense that the reason why I'm the opposite is I wasn't bothered about the defeat last night, but it's more the case of just because our fixture list coming up, like just looking at it now, like we've got congested fixture. We've got like 9 games now up until December, and my idea was the case of if we'd won last night, the final 2 Champions League games could have been like rest games where we could have rested players on, because we've got Ajax on the 1st of December and the Wolves on the 5th. I thought like we've got a really thin squad. We don't know when Thiago's coming back. I know Henderson's back today in training, but we still don't know when Ox and Trent 100% back either, or when Shaq and Keita, if they are going to be again available for us anytime this season. So, my feeling was he should have gone. I would have gone a bit stronger, and then taken players off, because realistically, Robbo, Firmino, Jota still came off at least half an hour. So I don't really see the difference between them starting the game and then coming off around the half-time mark. And then having the win sewn up, and then because I think Atlanta they needed to get a result last night because of especially Ajax playing Michelin, they were always going to win that. So them getting a win last night is a good result for them in terms of their overall standing for the group. So I feel like I get obviously Klopp was thinking about Brighton, but I think like as an old age saying, one game at a time, focus on the game you're playing, rather than think about the next game, because now I feel that we've done the opposite. We could have gone the easy way for once in Liverpool Champions League, but we've gone the hard way, which we always do in the Champions League. So now we have to play our strong team against Ajax.
No, we don't.
Well, if we played a week into last night against Ajax, we might lose. And then we have to go rely on Michelin.
I'd be surprised if we put the exact same team out against Ajax. It very much depends on what personnel we have available.
Yeah.
I think for me, I can agree with you saying maybe take some players off. What I will say is I'm not sure the Robertson sub was planned. I think that was we need to do something here because Tsimikas isn't doing as well as we would have hoped. They're really targeting Neco on that other side. So having Robertson as an outlet for the last 30 minutes or so would be helpful. I don't think that was necessarily a plan. I do think the rest were. That said, if you wanted to go stronger, who are you putting in other than Robertson? Because Gini's done the most minutes on the squad, a lot of international minutes as well. So giving him a full 90 was not going to be a good idea. If you're putting Milner in at right back instead of Neco, who else are you putting in the midfield? And
so my lineup was a bit different. So I still had Tsimikas. I still had Rob on the bench because I think he needed a rest. But my lineup when I started was Alisson, Tsimikas, Matip, still Williams in the middle with a centre back with him. Then I had Milner at right back, and then I had Gini, Fabinho, and Jones, just because I think we needed a strong midfield, because I think they dominated midfield last night. And then I had Firmino, Jota, and Salah up top, giving Mane a rest. And then I would have made the subs afterwards once the game was won. But Origi on Minamino, Neco Williams, and then as he dad done, but the other opposite way round when the game was won. Because I didn't see the point of bringing him on when we went 1-0 down. Because I think that we'd basically given up the game and we weren't going to come back in it.
Yeah, for me, the biggest question mark for me when I saw the lineup, I was pretty okay with exactly how we kind of walked it out, except for the Divock Origi choice. I thought that was a little weird for me because he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes in really any game, and I think this was his first minutes in, I want to say, about 2, maybe 3 weeks for the Reds. So, and my rationale and just what we talked about in the last podcast was, get the win today. Get the win yesterday, and then all you have to do is get a draw to be top of the group. And we've never had it easy in the group stage. And I think, especially because of the injuries, I would have started a Jota or Firmino up top just to have that little bit more fluidity. And you could see it in the game yesterday. Not only was the front three, I don't think that those three in a shell were creative enough, but the only thing we talked about is they had no entry. They were not getting the ball, in an attacking position. Every time they received it, I feel like it was closer to midfield and not in a dangerous position. Whereas Atalanta continued to attack, the Neco Williams side, getting the ball really in a good positions, and both goals came from crosses on that side. Mari, what were your thoughts on the Divock Origi start? Because that was a little bit of a head scratcher for me.
Like I said, I think both managers anticipated the other incorrectly. I think, let me actually check his name properly. Gasparini is their manager's name. I think he expected us to go very attacking from the start. That's what he's seen us do previously. If you watch Liverpool this season, you tend to see a team coming out relatively quickly and then being absolutely shattered by about 75. So the Man City game being a very good example of that, of two teams who played quite a good game for about 60 minutes. And then after that, they kind of felt like they didn't want to be playing anymore. Mm-hmm. But instead, Klopp tossed Origi out, right? He expected them to come at us and Origi would have a bit more space. I will say, I think the Shaqiri injury might have hurt us here more than we realize. I think the plan would have been putting Shaqiri in there, which would have unlocked a bunch of different midfield and defensive options. That injury was pretty unhelpful, especially since he played pretty well previously for us. And then alternatively, I think Klopp expected Atalanta to do the same thing, but they started with both of their top goal scorers, other than Gomez, Alejandro. Both of their goal scorers started on the bench. They played a bunch of players who I didn't expect to see in their starting lineup. A stronger team than us, but also worth noting, as you say, like they needed points, right? They played a weaker team too. They played their stronger team against us and lost 5-0. So I think both managers sort of anticipated a very different thing. Their players were older and more mature and dealt with it a bit better. We had 3 19-year-olds in very key parts of the pitch. So I mean, given our personnel options, I think we were bound to have a game where we just looked a bit poor for 90 minutes.
Mhm.
I personally am very happy that it came right now, where we have 2 games still in the Champions League to make things right. We also haven't dropped the points in the league despite having so many injuries, right? I would much rather play dead week and have everyone going in as green as they possibly can into the weekend. So I understand that I am the minority on that. I think we as fans tend to go game by game. We want to win the Champions League group right now. And I don't think that Klopp necessarily thought that, right? I think Klopp wanted them to put in a very big performance at Leicester and treat this as a bit of a break. Try to get a draw or a win versus Ajax, but probably with a relatively weakened team, but targeting Michelin as this is how we're fine, because these 2 teams can't beat each other. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point because, like we've said, like that's pretty much how we've always done it in the group stage. We pretty much leave it up to the last game or second to last game in order for us to clinch our spot. But, well, homie, I want to give you a chance to talk about the Origi deal because I think I even brought it up that there's a potential that he could play in this game. And, you and Andrew shot it down pretty quick. So, I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw him on the score sheet and then overall just kind of having a flat performance?
I think, like, on one hand, I think it's not Origi's fault because he's coming in cold. He's not had a lot of matches. And we're expecting him to then come and do a good performance. And I think the last time he played centrally was probably in the Everton win last year where he scored a hat-trick. So I think because of the big changes in the team, he was never going to play well. I think that also plays a big part in it because I think a lot of people have been harsh expecting him. We're not playing Robbo and Trent down the flanks to provide crosses in. We're playing, Tsimikas, which is his first game back properly since injury. And then we're playing an inexperienced Neco Williams. So there wasn't going to be lots of service in that sense. And I know Tsimikas putting the odd good cross in, but there wasn't a lot of service. And then I think also Origi's problem as well is the fact that after his injury back in 17-18, he lost his ability to link up play. I remember like when we go away to Dortmund, he was really good at holding up the ball and linking up play. He lost that ability for some reason in that injury. So he can't do that anymore for some reason. And then I think as well, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think he just didn't seem interested last night that much. Like, when off the ball, there wasn't that willingness to really press in that way or run down the ball. It seemed to be like, it reminded me of Sturridge when we had Sturridge in the final season when we come to pressing off the ball, he'd just be walking around a bit or not jogging around, not really busting a gut in to get back. And I think I was surprised that he started if we were going to play him because I thought, what's the point of Minamino being there if he's not going to play? Especially after Klopp saying all that stuff about Minamino. I was surprised. So, and then I thought as well that he's going to end up playing Origi in the wing. I thought that's what the last time we played Origi for the wing. So I was thinking, I just don't think it worked. I don't think it works for Origi anymore. And I think, like, pains me to say it, but we should have sold him last summer, to be honest. Or the summer before when he won the Champions League, we should have won them when the stock was high. And I think now he's just going through the motions because he's not going to play again for a good while now, probably. Maybe he plays in the Ajax game or maybe he doesn't. But it's not going to be for a good while, maybe to Midtjylland or something. So that's going to then affect him even more because he's not going to have any rhythm. And he's going to. I think it's for Origi, it's time's up, to be honest. And I hate to say it, but because he's a legend, but it's time's up. And I think the best thing for him now is, in January to go and loan somewhere, or he should have accepted that move to Villa in the summer, like instead of being too big for it. At least he would have got genuine minutes. Because I think if he goes anywhere else and he gets regular game time as a proper striker, he's got all the tools. He's got all the tools to do what Dan East is doing. Go somewhere and score at least like 15 goals as a striker. But I think it's just not working for him anymore at Liverpool. And the Origi effect of grabbing those big goals as well has gone. And I think when we play him now, it's just painful to watch him.
I agree. No, I mean, and it seems like to me that he, in his mind, he's already accomplished everything that he can accomplish here. And now it's just, it's taking care of my body. I don't want to get hurt. And like being ready for whenever he does move on. And in hindsight, obviously it's easy to say like Minamino should have started, but when you think about their style of play, Minamino, when we brought him in, we all thought that he was going to be Bobby's deputy, and we all know that Klopp says himself that Bobby is the system. So like I think Minamino, with his pressing ability and his link-up play, would have been a better option. But again, like Mari said, like I don't think Klopp thought that Atalanta was going to set up the way that they did. So it's easy for me to say that now, but still, I mean, I think that's why we brought Minamino in, was to play some meaningful minutes. So I think his time is coming, especially after Origi's performance today. But one of the things that we've talked about was Klopp not having a lot of options for this game. And I think when you watch this game, guys like James Milner and Gini Wijnaldum, they were just maybe a half a step slower. And it's not them that they're necessarily played bad. It's just, they're getting wiped out. So like, Mari, how concerned are you with, I know Henderson just got back into training, but, especially in our midfield, it just seems like we're dropping like flies. And now guys like Wijnaldum and Milner, like their legs look like they're starting to go a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, this game read to me very much as we're just trying to hang on until we get some more players back, as like asking them, because I rarely see Klopp try to play for a 0-0, and it looked like he was trying to play for a 0-0 yesterday. Like, I can't imagine him fielding that 11 and going, yeah, just be creative and get a couple goals. I don't think, like, it read to me as a go out and try and nick one sort of thing. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like I said before, I think Gini is on a ridiculous amount of minutes. Robertson's on the most, but Gini is generally, last season, he was the midfielder who put in the most minutes. We're a third of the way through this season around, and he's at about 45% of the minutes that he put in total last season, which, yeah, and I'm including the international minutes in both of those as well. But he didn't really play internationally as much last season versus this season. He's actually put in quite a few international minutes as well, because of course he has. It's just, we're asking quite a lot of them. So I think it made a lot of sense to me that Milner, who's not really accustomed to putting in 90 and then 90 potentially, I mean, he may be asked to do another 90 or so at right back as well. They're not ready to continue on for that much longer. So I think we're kind of fingers crossed. Seeing Henderson in training was fantastic. I'd love to know a bit more about the mystery that is Thiago. But I understand why Klopp and the club isn't releasing loads of information on that. Last I heard, I think Paul Joyce, spoke about how that tackle was actually a lot worse than it looked like, given that he continued playing, and like it was very close to breaking his leg or something, which it looked quite bad. But I mean, in terms of him playing afterwards. So yeah, it seemed to me that it's understandable why so many people were very, very tired. I think we were very, very close to seeing out a 0-0 draw, as foolish as that sounds, given that we conceded, but we had all of our senior subs up at 0-0 and then we conceded. And I have to wonder if that would have been a bit different if he got the subs on a bit earlier. But it's all hypothetical now. We played terribly. We probably deserved to lose. It is what it is. It happens sometimes. We're not used to it, but it happens sometimes.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, too, like, this is something I said after the Villa game, is like sometimes you can learn stuff from it, too. I don't think this is as much of a learning experience as it was for the Aston Villa game. The Aston Villa game. But still, I think for them, it's just like, okay, like we have to be 100% all the time. I mean, Wahomey, one of the things that I noticed in the game was when our defense had the ball going forwards, we were incredibly sloppy coming out of the back. I think that we were missing some leadership in the back. I don't think Matip is the vocal leader that we need in the back line. Obviously, he's being asked to do a little bit more than he typically does. But I think when you look across, even Neco Williams, Samikas, even Salah at times when he came back for the ball, I don't remember a time seeing us make 6, 7, 8 sloppy passes coming out of our zone in one half. And I feel like we saw that a lot yesterday.
Yeah, I think that was bound to happen because of inexperience, and I think you've got Simikas playing, like I said, his first game back since injury, really. And then you've got Neco Williams, like he's very experienced at the Champions League level. So I know I saw like stats of Neco Williams, and he was like quite good in terms of first for like, I think it was most tackles. So, which is weird because, you know, you think there's actually stats that show that he's actually one of the best actually on the pitch.
I don't think he was terrible.
I know. So it's weird because in the first like 10 minutes, he actually gave the ball away quite a few times, which nearly. So I thought maybe the game. I think maybe he started off a bit nervous, then he got better as it went on. And it's one of the things, just you know, you're not going to see it actually watching it, but he actually did play well in terms of that side. We actually look at the stats. And then I think the midfield was knackered. You know, they put in a massive shift against Leicester, which was huge. And then you're expecting like Jones, especially, like he's quite young, you know, to do another 90 minutes and play at a high level. You know, you could see as well, like the drive he showed against Leicester wasn't there last night. You know, the same with Milner and Ginny, it wasn't there. You know, the energy was just sapped. So there wasn't a press from midfield, and that's why it was much more easier for Napoli to pass the ball around. And even when the front three were pressing, really, there wasn't much. There's normally a second wave of press behind that helps them press. And there wasn't that last night because everyone was knackered. So I think like my concern right now is these players have to go again in less than 24 hours again. So Gini's played so much football now. Like he needs a rest. I wouldn't play him against the weekend because I think he needs a rest. I think he's gonna be knackered, you know. And I think like we're pushing these injuries to Keita and Shaq are killing us, to be honest, and Ox, because we're pushing these players to go to depleting, you know, and there's only so much they can give before, you know, we're lucky that Gini never gets injured. Because one, you know, if he gets to the point where if he gets to the point where he gets too knackered and he gets injured against Brighton, then we're up the creek. So, and also Milner, I'm worried, like, can Milner now last another 90 minutes at his age? I know he's really fit, but can he do it? Can Matic do another 90 minutes? You know, we're lucky he didn't get injured last night because, you know, so I don't know. I feel like we're pushing our players really hard. I think the next game there has to be changes. Like, because some people just need a rest. Like Marnie, Gini, they need a rest to be told, like, you know, you're sitting this one out. Especially with Hendrick coming back, that allows us to rest Gini. So otherwise, I think we're going to end up burning them out.
Well, I want to stick on Neco Williams for a minute there because I'm getting really irritated with some fans with their treatment of Neco Williams because this kid's still 19 years old playing in the Champions League and they're expecting him to be at Trent's level already. And it's really, really frustrating. There's going to be moments where he's going to be sloppy. There's going to be moments where it's just like a huge, just like, you know, just making young mistakes. But like, again, I thought he held his own pretty solid. Like, it wasn't great, but you know what? Nobody was great yesterday. The entire team across the board was pretty bad. And, you know, the fact that this kid's 19 is getting the abuse that he's getting online is pretty ridiculous. I mean, I think it's so hard for him. When was the last time that he played as well, other than for Wales? I think it was about a month, you know, since he got back on the pitch, and we're expecting him to jump right in and be, you know, a 10 out of 10 performance against a pretty good Atalanta side. I mean, you know, Mari, what's your confidence like in a guy like Neco going forward?
It's one of those where I think a couple of things. We as fans, I think, forget a lot the performances that Gomez and Trent put in early on in their Liverpool careers. They also looked not great. And both of them, it's worth noting, only found their way into the side because of injuries, right? They weren't chosen. Curtis Jones, in a lot of ways, while he's getting minutes now because people are injured, he was put in the team largely to give him the opportunity to play. Whereas both Trent and Gomez, who both started on that right back side, were because our squad was really thin. And so we just kind of had to give youth players a go. And now Williams is kind of in that same boat, not because people are injured necessarily all the time, but because we need to be able to rest people. And the difference there is that both when Gomez and when Trent were coming in, they had senior players to help cover them when they were playing that position. I mentioned it before, but we had 3 19-year-olds in that little area over on that side, on that right side. Usually when Trent goes forward, you have Henderson or Gini kind of plugging the gaps. Henderson does it really well. You really notice when Henderson's not there because that side tends to look a bit more open when Henderson's not playing. And Genie did quite well. Like, he did fine, but he's clearly shattered. So you had 3 19-year-olds and Genie trying to cover for all of them. And you had Joel Matip playing with a 19-year-old on one side and a guy making his, I think, second appearance on the other side, trying to direct things, and a shattered midfield in front of him. So it was never going to look great. And the best thing I can say is I don't think either of the Williams, the 19-year-old Williamses that we fielded, were necessarily as bad as we think they were. I think Neco, as you said, he played decently. If it were just him playing in a senior side, I think we would be talking about his performance very differently, because I think he would have had a lot more of an outlet for passing. I think he would have had more coverage. I think he played quite well, given the constraints put around him. And Rhys Williams as well. He turned off for that goal. It was very much, he did not realize where his man was and he scored. But he's a 19-year-old center back, and that's one of the hardest positions to play on the pitch. And you're gonna get an error out of a 19-year-old probably a few times a game, if you're lucky that it's just a few times a game. Unfortunately for him, they scored off that error. And he did well, I think, to not absolutely lose his head after that. I think last match at Atalanta, we were talking about how he did quite well. It's, again, I think because he had quite a bit of support around him that he didn't have this time. And what we ended up doing was allowing the 19-year-olds to get targeted a bit. And Atalanta absolutely targeted them a bit. And I think they did all right in the circumstances. I think we have to judge the players based on how Klopp fielded them, and that he fielded them to leave them very exposed. They did as good as I think we could have expected them in those circumstances, and they by no means deserve hate anyway. But I also think we need to be careful in remembering that they're 19.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes back to my original point too, with that back line of just not having a ton of vocal leadership either, because yeah, Rhys Williams was definitely out of position there, lost his man, but who knows if he was being communicated to as well. Like, who knows if, like, I didn't really hear a lot of Matip's voice in that game. Like, did he let him know that his man was there and they have that communication? Did Ali do that? And really, like, what I thought too was this was like a classic example of a game where we really, really missed Jordan Henderson. I just thought we could have used his leadership and his vocal ability in the midfield, but also for the cover for Neco Williams. That's one of the things that he does such a good job of. He's always covering for Trent on that side. And I think that while Milner did spend a lot of time on that side, I just think, Henderson's the better player, could have used him there. And then this game also screamed for somebody like Thiago, because again, I've made this point already, but our front three had no good balls going into them. They never got the ball in a dangerous situation. And Thiago's just one of those guys that can hit that pass at any time. What did you think about the two Williams? I know they weren't great, but are you concerned?
No, I agree with what Maury's saying. Like, I think they're inexperienced. So this is going to happen. In the Atalanta game, we had Gomez. Gomez was coming to be like a vocal leader, was instructing in that. He was coming to his own. Matip's not that kind of player. And then I think it doesn't help. Obviously, the fact that you've got a tied midfield three that's playing, then you've got that can't do the normal pressing. I think if they were fully charged, then they would have offered more protection. But that midfield was stretched to the point in terms of energy, and then you're looking at one mistake really in terms of switching off, and then it's a goal, which can happen. I know I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, because they're 19, then they start comparing. Oh, well, Mbappe's 19. Look at how good he is." It's like you can't really compare that way. Even Varane, when he was 19, he made mistakes. As good as he was, he made mistakes, and it's going to happen. So I'm not really worried in that sense. They will learn from this, and probably the next time maybe they might not. We have more players back, they might not even play. So because that was Nico's game since a while. Williams' other Williams' game for a while now. Since the last Atlanta game, he hasn't played. So it's just a learning experience. They're going to have to take it the chin and learn from it. And know that maybe on another occasion when we have more players back, they'll get more protection. But I think people are going over the top and they're looking for a scapegoat because I've seen Neco Williams and Tsimikas all getting slate.
Of course.
And people criticizing them. And I think, like you said, people are expecting Neco to put in great crosses like Trent did. You know, and while Nico has got in that capability, he's done it for Wales. He does do good crossing. I think for Liverpool, he's more concerned with not doing the wrong thing, and he's more concerned with like playing it safe rather than trusting in his ability to put the balls in. That's why he doesn't do it as much, and he plays it more safe for Liverpool. Maybe for Wales, he's got a bit more freedom, but I think in Liverpool, he's still got in that mind. I don't want to mess up. And I think also with Tsimikas as well, like. I think he still needs to just learn our style of play more and get used to it. I think it's just, it's going to take him time because it took Robertson 6 months to really become good for us. I think it's going to take him time. And I think, as we just know Matip needs someone vocal next to him. So I think maybe when Fabinho plays, he's the vocal one. So I think that all played a part, in terms of what happened.
Yeah, and again, it really just comes down to who's available and who's not available. I mean, like obviously Virgil and Thiago, they're injured because of bad tackles. But Maury, one thing I wanted to ask you about, something that we believe on this podcast is availability is an ability, and it's getting to the point now with guys like Ox, Shaqiri, Naby Keita, 3 guys that all the fans like when they're playing. They all play great football, but they're never available. And we know that Klopp likes guys who are available and who are fit. How do you see those 3's future kind of going forwards? Is it something that you think maybe after this year they may be replaced just because they continually are getting injured, or what are your thoughts on them?
I kind of disagree with you guys wholeheartedly. I think Keita especially. He's Klopp's first choice very often. When he's healthy, he plays. And so I think we tend to just take all of the games and we don't see Keita very often, so Klopp must not like him. I did an analysis of the home run, so the 64-time unbeaten home run, and Keita was in the most used midfield against Big Six teams. We played 15 games against the Big Six. Keita was in the most used combination, right? Oxlade-Chamberlain has stepped in and scored some quite big goals in games like the one yesterday. So if we don't have an Ox, we don't have that rotation ability. And I also think this time with Keita is a bit interesting because he seemed fine. He played on international duty and came back and got injured. I don't think all injuries are necessarily created equal, but I do think that these 2 players are very different types of players to speak about. I think Ox would be more likely to be on the way out than Keita is. That said, I think having both of them back is something that Klopp is looking forward to. I don't think he necessarily thinks of them as their availability is making me dislike them as a player and maybe want to get rid of them. I think having them for even as little as 10 matches a season is better than having them not at all. Ox was man of the match in an FA Cup final at right wing back. That would be useful to have at the moment. Mm-hmm. So keeping all of that in mind, and just in general, I'm not really sure. It's that catch-22 where if they don't have minutes, you're not going to sell them for a lot of money anyway. Right. So I'm not really sure you're making a better decision for the team by selling a player for less than what they're worth. I think we can have that conversation about Divock Origi and whether or not he should have been sold. I think selling either Ox or Keita right now would be a huge financial loss that I don't think is necessarily worth what we would get even if we played them for, say, 4 matches this season, given how much of a knife edge we're walking on injury. Keita hasn't played very much for us, but the minutes that he did play gave another midfielder a rest. And if we're going to sit here and talk about how terribly knackered our midfield looked, I think literally anyone who can go in and be a first team choice rather than, right, well, we have to field 3 19-year-olds is worth talking about. But I don't know. It's hard to tell on that one. I try not to speculate because, I mean, one of our fan base's favorite players is Daniel Agger. And that man could not play 2 games in a row because his body just wouldn't let him. Like, he would be, I think, one of the all-time greats if he wasn't injured as much as he was, right?
Mhm.
And he still was a tremendous servant to the club. And I don't think any of us would rather he have not been there, despite the fact that his consistency was a major issue. And we as a team would have been a lot better, perhaps, with a player who could play every week, even if he was 80% of Ager's ability, right? It's one of those that I think is very difficult to talk about mid-season. I think we should maybe take stock in the summer. But at the same time, also along with you're going to lose money if you sell players who haven't got a lot of minutes. COVID economy is a thing. There's a reason, I think, that we didn't sell quite a few of the players that we shop windowed pretty explicitly. And so I don't think we would have got a lot of money for Ox, or I don't think Cato was necessarily on the selling block at all.
No.
But I don't think we would have, if we had put Ox up after playing no minutes in a COVID economy, I'm not sure we would have been very happy with the returns, basically. But I don't know. It's one of those. We'll see how it is at the end of the season. If we continue on this knife edge injury and availability, I think having a couple of injured players who can slot in a game or two is going to be hugely important at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we should definitely take a look at that, considering it is COVID, all the congested schedule. And I do think, just looking at the Liverpool team as a whole, like this, I feel like this must happen like less than once every 10 years. Like the injury list that we have right now, like it is pretty unreal that like we honestly only have 3 options in the midfield right now. Like and things of like that really never happens. It definitely is unforeseen circumstances, but and going back to like Naby Keita, like, I don't think he would get sold just because of his price tag when we brought him in, and we know Liverpool's philosophy on trying to make a bargain on everybody, so it wouldn't work. But yeah, it's just those 3 guys, especially Shaqiri, always getting these little calf injuries. It seems like they're coming at the wrong time. But kind of pivoting to the news that just came out in the last couple of days, fans coming back to Anfield, sounds like December 2nd. I think it's going to be about 2,000 fans to start. Well, homie, pretty exciting news. I know it's not full capacity, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, obviously I was looking to see, because Liverpool were in tier 3 before lockdown, and I was thinking like, are we going to get it? So I'm happy that we're tier 2 and Manchester have no fans. So, even though they have less count than us in terms of COVID cases, but yeah, for some reason they're tier 3 still. But yeah, I think it's going to be actually huge. I think I think they, our first game with the Wolves, we have fans in, Jota facing up against the old team. So I think that's going to be actually huge for us to even have 2,000 fans in there, because I think although we've done really well without the fans, I think even that amount of fans will give us a bit more of an extra push, and especially with the amount of games we've got leading up to the end of Christmas, could play a big part. And I'm especially thinking like when we face Spurs, that's going to be on the 16th of December. Having these 2,000 fans in there could be the difference between really pumping up the team and giving that extra level. So I think it's going to be crucial. And it's been a long time. I never thought we'd have fans this side of the year. So I'm looking forward to some fans in there and getting them an atmosphere. But I think some players like Bobby, although he scored, I think he does need the fans to be singing "Si Senor," giving an extra push.
I need fans too. I need the fans to be in there singing "Si Senor."
So yeah, I think this is great. I think this is really good. Hopefully, then in January or February they can say more if it goes well. But I do know there's going to be some restrictions. They said, like in terms of what the fans can and can't do inside the stadium.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go to that. Mari, do you know much about kind of the guidelines on that with the fans coming in, and also like only having 2,000 fans in Anfield? Do you think that is going to make an impact for the players out on the pitch?
I mean, I'm pretty sure politics in Liverpool, talking about how generally it's the transport and the entrance points that are the issue. That's what's limiting the numbers, because it needs to be safe for staff and it needs to be safe for the people coming in. And there are certain sort of bottleneck areas. And they don't want people crowding out transit on game days. So if you're comparing it to, say, a movie theater or something like that, you're not getting a bunch of people getting on buses and trains if you're coming into Liverpool, kind of all concentrated at the same time, which is an issue. It's all about minimizing risk. So trying to make it as least likely that someone gets COVID or spreads COVID is the point. But will I think that can make a difference? I think it's better having 2,000 than none. For us, at least. I think I've heard it said on a variety of different sort of fan medias, but that teams like Jose Mourinho's Tottenham might actually benefit from not having fans in, because if they're playing very defensively for whatever reason, fans can't say, like, no, we don't like this. But I tend to just approach all of this as positively as possible, because it's a very unforeseen circumstance. There's no really avoiding it. You don't want to get people sick. And I could see it being like sort of an Anfield that's like a non-league match, which sounds hilarious to me. Like, we're talking loads about how you can hear like that little compilation video of Henderson telling everyone good job and that. Like, we're going to have 2,000 fans on the ground and you're going to be able to hear absolutely every single one of them yelling individual things. So no, they won't be able to carry songs as well, but I cannot wait to hear them yell at the referee individually from various parts of the stadium. Like, I've had really great experiences sat in non-league grounds where you can hear the lad from 40 yards away yelling at the referee for making a shit decision, or telling a player not to shoot from 40 yards out. And we might have that ambiance in Anfield, and I think it might be something of a hilarious little gift for us. But no, I think Jota, as mentioned before, he hasn't scored in front of any level of crowd, and he scores when he wants. So I'd really like him to be able to score in front of a crowd. I'm trying to look out to other fans as well. Like, as awful as the Villa result was for us, I actually did still feel a bit bad that Villa fans didn't get to be there for it. Like, that's not something that you're going to see very often. And that ground probably would have had the best day out in a long time for them, bar promotion. And I did feel a bit gutted for them, because like, that's seeing things in a community of people that all want the same thing as you is part of why this sport is great. So if 2,000 fans is the first step to get there and we can do that safely, by all means. And I'm enjoying Manchester being the Liverpool for the first time, because usually it makes no sense that we are not. And this time it's them. And I've seen loads of memes going around just being like, the rate in London is this, the rate in Manchester is this, they're in tier 1, we're in tier 3, why? It's fantastic. It's not us. All serious. No, it doesn't make sense, and I feel sorry for them, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Imagine like the club will pick the most hardcore fans to go in as well, the most passionate. Or the season ticket holders. They'll pick the season ticket holders to be the 2,000 to give them atmosphere. So, so I think that will help. Like, if you're getting at least 2 of the hardcore Reds in there, like singing, there will be some kind of atmosphere. It'll be better than the stupid stadium fake cheers they put in on anyhow.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Blur to be done. I want no more Blur. And at least on the streams I've been watching, they've been playing Poetry in Motion like 7 times per match.
Yep.
Which I had no real strong feelings for that song, like really positive, really negative before this behind closed doors thing. But now I would gladly not hear it in the ground again.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know what it is for the stream that I get, but it's always the same exact song over and over again. I forget which one it is now that the game's not on. But yeah, that whole dynamic is going to be something interesting to watch starting December 2nd. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. But that ultimately wraps up this episode of Yanks of the Cop. Mari, thanks again for coming on. And just for everyone out there who's listening, how else can they follow you? And where else can they find you?
My Twitter handle is my first name, so Mari, middle initial C, and my last name Lewis, so Mari C. Lewis. I'm on Instagram as well, which I only mention because I very rarely get to bring up my Instagram username in public, and my Instagram username is your photos are well shit. I created it in 2013 and it will never change.
I love that. Love that. Well, keep up the rating. We love it here, and we're so appreciative of you coming on the podcast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'll
Awesome.
have you again sometime, definitely.
Yeah, definitely have to have you again. Hopefully after like a nice convincing win, something like that this time.
I have good thoughts sometimes too, rather than just me trying to be like, this is as good as we could have hoped. No loss.
It works. It works for this episode. But yeah, that wraps it up for everyone out there. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. But we will be back. Quick turnaround tomorrow for the Brighton pregame. So up the Reds, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.